Well, I think we're gonna get going. I know you all have had a fairly long day already today, right? You're up on the hill, pounding the pavement, right? Is that what you guys were doing before?
Yes.
Well, welcome to the White House. We appreciate having you here. I know you, many of you have flown in from various places, and we're just excited to engage in this conversation and have this debate. My name is Buffy Wicks. I'm with the Office of Public Engagement. I'm Deputy Director of the office. Greg is part of our team. Greg Nelson, who I'm sure most of you know, he is not feeling well today. And I also handle H1N1 outreach. So in that spirit, I told him to stay home to protect all of us. So he's unfortunately not here today, but he's loaded up on cold medication. Hopefully we'll see him tomorrow. Send him your best wishes if you have his email address. So I just wanted to welcome you. I'm going to turn it over here shortly to Heather Zeichel, who is our Deputy Director of the White House Office of Energy and Climate Change. But before I do that, I just want to emphasize and reiterate how important it is that your voices are heard in this debate. You know, DC is a very insular community, and I'm learning that every day here in the White House, and how things work on the Hill and so on and so forth. So what we really need is folks out in the States having these conversations, having the dialogue, engaging people in this important issue. So folks out in communities all across the country, that's really how change happens. So we need your guys' help in that. And what I also wanted to reiterate is today's purpose is to hear from you all in what you are hearing and seeing in conversations that you're having, and if things are working or not working, we want to hear that. We want to hear that from you, and hopefully that'll help us think through our strategy moving forward as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather Zeichel, who is a preeminent leader on this issue. She's the heart and soul of the office here, along with Carol Browner. So Heather?
Thanks, Buffy. And I just want to take, again, an opportunity to echo what Buffy said. It's great to have everybody here today. Your voices are critical to this conversation about building tomorrow's clean energy future and how we're going to get comprehensive legislation passed. I'll take a couple minutes to talk a little bit about what our office does and sort of how the administration is engaged on comprehensive energy reform. At the beginning of the year, the president established our office, the White House Office of Energy and Climate Change, so that we could think strategically about how we pursue our energy policies. We don't want to think about, just the role of the Department of Energy or the role of EPA, but everybody has a stake in the transition to a clean energy economy across the administration, from the role, the important role at the Department of Defense, to some of the things you've been hearing from Secretary Salazar today was just in fact talking about citing renewable energy on public land. So we have sort of an all hands on deck approach to building and coordinating our energy policy within the administration. President Obama, from the very early days, and certainly on the campaign, spent a lot of time talking about the fact that comprehensive energy reform was a top priority for him. Again, he very much views this as something that's key to our economic recovery, but also an opportunity to create jobs. And certainly that's why a lot of you are here today, and the message you bring to Capitol Hill is so important. It's also an exciting day to have you here because we have, as good as we all feel about the action taken earlier this summer in the House to pass legislation, we had an important progress was made and announced just earlier today by Senators Boxer and Kerry. Their comprehensive legislation on climate and energy front was their draft bill. I've been spending a lot of time sifting through 800 plus pages this morning. And if you're looking for some reason to fall asleep tonight, I highly suggest that it's really good reading. Obviously very important nonetheless, but the president put out a statement earlier today echoing the important movement that we're seeing in the Senate and how this is one step, again, towards getting comprehensive energy reform. Thanks to their hard work and all of your hard work, we're one step closer to passing legislation. I think, from our perspective in the weeks and months ahead, as the Senate schedule plays out and all the different committees and all the different members on both sides of the aisle engage in this discussion and get the bill moving through the Senate, we look forward to engaging on a variety of issues. I think we all know what some of the trickier and more challenging issues are, but again, I think we feel really good about the discussions and dialogue that the administration has started with both Democrats and Republicans. Every conversation, and I'm hopeful that with your Hill visits, you're just going to grease the skids for us, and we'll have a much easier time. But everybody is starting from a place of wanting to get to yes on a bill. And I think whether it's, again, Secretary Chu or Carol Browner or the president, who's engaging with some of the key members in trying to understand what their thoughts and concerns are and how we get this bill across the finish line. We're all committed to getting there, and you're very important to our ultimate success. So again, we really thank you for your efforts and appreciate an opportunity to join you today. Thanks.
Hi there. My name is Ivan Frischberg. I'm the political director for Environment America, and which should grow about 6 inches and dye my hair blonde, and I could sub in for Greg Nelson, which is what he asked me to do here as to help usher things along in MC. I'd also like to echo thanks to the White House staff for helping to put this on, and to the folks from the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators. There is a lot of activity going on, as Heather mentioned, with the announcement of the Kerry Boxer legislation today. There's a great number of people who are focused on this issue, but as Heather and Buffy were also saying, it's the work that is being done out in the states to build the clean energy economy, to reduce our carbon emissions, that is the kind of really at the forefront of this, both in terms of real change and real carbon reduction, real greater security, greater prosperity, but it's at the forefront of what's going to move and define and shape the political debate here in Washington. So thank you for coming and being a part of that. I also want to thank the President for going to Copenhagen this week. We think it is a bold move to advance your own energy visit later in December, but we appreciate the commitment to detail that he's putting into this. I want to start by introducing a couple of our host folks here. Margie Alt from Environment America, who is the executive director of the Federation. She is a lifelong activist and sort of at the top of her craft of organizers, of policy people, and leads a federation of 28 state-based environmental groups who really have, for a long time now, sort of paved the way on clean energy and climate policies. And so it is my great pleasure to introduce, and my obligation, because she's my boss, to introduce Margie Alt.
Guess I can't tell my Greg joke. I have to tell my Ivan jokes, which I have years worth of. Thanks everybody for being here, and thanks for giving me the opportunity. It is not only fun to be at the White House always, but especially fun to be here with folks from states across the country and with business people who are on the ground every single day, not only realizing the challenges that we are facing environmentally and economically, but even more important, realizing the opportunity that a clean energy economy will give us in this country for our planet and for making sure that we can keep our quality of life as good and as strong as we want it to be. And I have to say, it seems like you all are making quite a huge difference. We from the environmental community have been knocking on doors in the Hill days and days and days, hours, weeks, months, frankly, years. And in less than 24 hours, you all got a bill out of the Senate, which we've been trying to do forever. And I think it's really because of the fear of hearing the real-life stories that you would tell them about what would happen if they didn't move forward that has helped to grease the skids. It is also an impressive day on behalf of the administration in seconding Ivan to thank the Obama administration for all their work, because in addition to what Secretary Salazar has done today, the EPA is also moving forward on some regulations on carbon pollution coming from major stationary sources. So a lot happening in this town to start to catch up with all the good work that you all and so many others have done in the states. As Ivan mentioned, Environment America is a federation of 28 state environmental groups, and in addition to our work on clean energy, we're about clean air, clean water, and protecting open spaces. And if there's one thing I know from having spent more than 25 years working on these kinds of issues with so many people like yourselves. It's that most of the good ideas get proven at the state level or at the local level and not here in DC. It is people like yourselves, whether in the legislature or in the business community, who have championed the need for strong policies. It's you all, whether in government or in private sector, who have made it possible for us to prove that we can, in fact, have solar power and turn on our lights at the same time. That we can, in fact, use less energy and use it more efficiently and still get every place we want to go here in this great country. So thank you very much for what you've done for the environment and for our economy and for creating the precedent that we so desperately need here in Washington, D.C. Just looking at a couple of examples of what's happened so far in the states, and like any good revolution, our clean energy revolution is bottom up and happening local by local, state by state, as it moves its way here to Washington, D.C. Couple examples, there are now 29 states with renewable energy standards. There are now 19 states that have some kind of energy efficiency requirements. 14 states adopted clean cars programs and helped pave the way for a national announcement now that we're going to make sure that all of our cars in this country produce less carbon dioxide pollution. So thanks for what you've already done. Thanks for giving us at Environment America the opportunity to be working with you at the state level. And even more, thank you for coming to DC to bring your critical stories here to Washington. Because let's face it, Washington, D.C. has been a little bit slow at acknowledging that we need a clean energy revolution. The good news is that was then. Because since the Obama administration came to town and this Congress has been in office, they actually have moved quite quickly and quite aggressively to push for efficiency, clean energy, and moving forward on global warming pollution as well. If you just take the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which was passed in February, that is an unprecedented $80 billion of investment in efficiency, in renewable energy, and green transportation. Immense move forward for the environment, huge move forward for clean energy businesses, and a huge job creator, all in one package that's happening right now in this country. But even with these impressive results, it's just a drop in the bucket compared to what has to happen to really solve the problems that are facing us. I mean, the new science is coming out all the time that tells us that if we don't reverse course on carbon dioxide emission, the planet may not survive. Our dependence on oil is threatening our security. The current energy policies that we have in this country are a drag on the economy. We know we can do better. We know we need to do better. In my world, I'd see each of us live in a home or work in a building that produces more energy than it actually uses. In my world, all of our energy would come from the sun or from the wind or from waves or from other clean and renewable sources. In my world, we could get anywhere we wanted in this country, either by walking or biking or by hopping on public transit, or when we chose to get in our cars would go 100 miles a gallon at minimum. And the reality is, thanks to all the work that you all are doing in the states, that vision is not that far off. We have the technology right here today in this country to do all of that if we create the policy incentives that push us in that direction. And that's why these next few weeks and months are so critical. That vision can become reality if state and local governments continue to play a major role in pushing the innovations forward and in letting your federal elected officials know what a good track record you're building. That vision will become reality if entrepreneurs, small businesses, and large that do clean energy work, along with our counterparts in the labor community, continue to prove that we can make money and create jobs and help the environment. And we know that President Obama is with us. He campaigned on stopping global warming, on creating the clean energy economy, and his administration has taken some great steps forward in just the 9 months. So we're here today to make sure that Congress follows suit. The House passed a bill, precedent-setting, historic, capping global warming pollution, investing in clean energy. The Senate bill came out today. It moves forward as well. We all know we're going to need to do more even after these bills pass. They won't solve the whole problem, but the bottom line is we have to act now. We have to act today. We have to act swiftly and boldly in order to turn this problem on its head and get going in the right direction. There's an incredibly strong case to be made that a clean energy economy is not only good for the environment, but is essential to the economy in this country. And there are no better people to make that case than you all in this room. You are living proof every single day of that story. There's huge public support for this same set of ideas, and so we have that going for us. The reality is there's also a lot of opposition from powerful interests who have a stake in the energy policies of the past. And so the political lift is a heavy one, which means, let me finish up and tell you that the work you've done is already making a huge difference. The work you've done just in the last 24 hours on the Hill is already making a difference in moving the Senate forward. Because you're here, we actually have the opportunity to get the clean energy economy that we all hope for so much. It is a great challenge. These stakes are really high. The opposition is totally mighty. But knowing that you all are involved, I mean, we're mighty too. So thank you again for coming to town and joining us in making sure we can get this clean energy economy on track.
Thank you, Margie. It's now my pleasure to introduce Delegate Jim Hubbard, who is the president of the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators. He's been a leader in Maryland, I think, as Margie was going through the list of renewable energy standards, carbon cap legislation, clean cars. Maryland has been a leader in all of that, as well as many toxics issues that I know that you've been involved with. And so I think there's no better example to talk about the leadership of the states and no better organization. I think, although you might want to consider changing the name to the National Caucus of Job Creators or something like that, because I think that's the real story of the work that you guys are doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I am Jim Hubbard, the Assistant Majority Leader in the Maryland House of Delegates. I'm very proud to be an 18-year member of that House. Not only do check off the three issues that we talked about, but we have the strongest state emissions reductions bill in the country, including a 25% reduction in CO2 at the 2006 standards by 2020. Very aggressive. Our renewable energy has been very high. We've changed it from 7 to 14 to 20. And we're moving forward, and I think I'm just very happy that we're close to D.C. and we can move and we can help. There wasn't as much of a fight as I thought we were going to be. I think good legislation takes a longer period of time than bad legislation does to get through any chamber, but I think that the grassroots is in the state level. That's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where we can get it done. I think the state legislators that are here today have done an excellent job in their own states. They are the grassroots. They send a message to Congress. As a matter of fact, I found in many instances that businesses run to Congress after 5 or 6 or 10 states pass what the industry calls boutique laws. They're all different. We can't meet these standards in Maryland. We can't meet them in Virginia. We can't meet them in Ohio. But once they're on the books and it's effective date, by God, they meet them in about 2 days. But they run to Congress and say, give us a minimal standard, give us a standard that we can live with, even if it's even from a federalistic point of view, you allow the states to be stronger. Give us a bottom line that we can live with. I'm here today representing the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators. That caucus was started in 1995 by 10 of us representing 5 states, so we could share information, ideas, and strategies for passing good environmental and energy policy, as well as alerting each other about bad policy coming down the road to try to weaken our environmental laws. Today, our membership includes 800 legislators representing all 50 states, Democrats, Republicans, independents, and basically they are working very hard as we speak today in reference to this energy bill at the federal level. Many of you were on Capitol Hill this morning speaking with your congressional delegations about the urgency of enacting a strong, clean energy bill in this country. As the efforts of the Capitol Hill and the White House continue, NCEL will keep our members informed of the legislation as well as the opportunities for our members to participate when needed and when called upon. As the leaders of clean energy in the country, state legislators know a thing or two about passing clean energy bills and clean air bills and clean water bills. The leadership of the states, by all of you in this room, is the reason we're here today on the verge of having a strong national clean energy policy. After leaving here today, I encourage you all to stay informed and not to hesitate. Continue sharing your thoughts with your congressional delegations, your congressmen, and your senators. NCEL is, again, pleased to be part of this. We'll do anything we can to help you. I want to congratulate President Obama. I want to congratulate Senator Boxers and Kerry. I think what they've done adds justice to what we've done at the states. they can look to us for leadership in reference to what we've done, what we've done to impact, how we've impacted it, and how we've come about with consensus legislation that meets air quality standards that's good for the public health of this country, especially our children. Thank you.
We have our panelists, our first panelists, folks from North Carolina, come up onto the stage, and then introduce Nick Rathod from the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs to come and say a few words and introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Ivan. I'll be really quick. I wanted just to tell you a little bit about what our office does and then how state legislators can kind of engage with the White House. So I work in the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. Our job is to basically be and work with state legislators, governors, mayors, all non-federal elected officials, county officials from around the country. And one thing that was impressed upon me as soon as we got in, coming straight from the president, is that this was going to be an administration that was open-minded. We would work in a bipartisan way, and that we would make sure that we were never D.C. focused, that it was all about the states, it was all about the people. And so that is how we want to carry out our job in our office. And so part of what we want to do, and part of what we're doing, is creating, in particular on the legislator side, is working groups of state legislators to kind of help feed the administration information, advice, those sorts of things on policy. And so we've done that on the healthcare side. We have a really great working group of state legislators for health reform that have done just an incredible job of kind of being an echo chamber for us, advising us on policy, all of those sorts of things. And on the energy side, we're kind of ramping that up now. And so yesterday we had a kickoff call for the group, and it went really well. And I'm really actually excited about working with this group in particular, because as what's been said before, you all really have been at the forefront, the innovators. You are where the rubber meets the road, and there's so much we can learn from you. And so on the policy side, we really want to get that information. And then also on the, you all are very close to your constituents and understand what the feeling is like in the country, and really can feed that information back to us, because we often can kind of form a bubble here in D.C. and we don't want to, we want to make sure that we're hearing from the states, from you all on what's going on. So we have our group, but for those of you who have not participated yet or would like to get involved, feel free to email me. I'll give you my email address right now, and I'm more than happy to bring you in, and we can and you can be a part of our discussions. We'll do weekly calls and those sorts of things to really kind of keep the momentum going and that sort of thing. So my name is Nick Rathod, N-I-C-K-R-A-T-H-O-D. The email address is nrathod@who.eop.gov. And so email me, and let's get this conversation started. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Pricey to introduce the panelists and start the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. I'm not sure I'm equipped to introduce the official titles here of my fellow panelists. I'm Pricey Harrison. I'm a member of the North Carolina House, and I co-chair our Legislative Commission on Global Climate Change. I'm also vice chair of our Energy Committee, and I'm joined by Cy Rich, who's on the North Carolina Economic Development Board, and I believe chair of the subcommittee on innovation. Is that right? And professor at Duke, and a former natural gas industry executive. Is that right? And the resume too long for me to give adequate justice here today. And Eric Lynch is president of Argonne Energy Solutions, and he is involved in the renewable energy industry in North Carolina, and which is a budding industry. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. In North Carolina, and I just have to put this in the context of climate change, because that's sort of a lot of what drives me at the legislature. And we know in North Carolina we're particularly vulnerable to climate change. We're third most vulnerable to sea level rise behind Florida and Louisiana, and actually learned that from someone from Maryland who came and spoke to us about all that you all are doing about adaptation, which we're not doing enough about. I think we're about 24th in the world in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, which is not insignificant. And we know that the impact on all kinds of industry, on our agriculture, our horticulture, public health impacts that we have, it could be pretty gloomy if we don't get a handle on climate change. So we've been kind of aggressive about it, and the good news about it is that it's provided an economic opportunity. North Carolina has been devastated by the loss of manufacturing jobs and the decline of the tobacco industry. And what we've seen with the emergence of some of our energy policies is, while our unemployment rate has doubled from a little bit over 5% to almost 11%, which is one of the highest in the country, a number of green energy jobs, specifically renewable energy and energy efficiency jobs, have gone from 6,500 to 10,250 over the same period. So it's pretty remarkable progress on that end, and that's something that I feel pretty good about. And you could tie that in part to the adoption of our renewable energy portfolio standard, which we adopted in 2007 and is still getting implemented. But ours is fairly modest, particularly compared to Maryland. We don't have a lot of the resources that other states have. We have wind offshore, we have some sun, we have a lot of biomass, but we haven't gotten a handle on how to do that in a clean way. So we start out with fairly modest RPS. It's 12.5% by 2021 with some interim goals, I think 3% by 2012. We actually brought the co-ops and the munis in in the beginning, which is, I think, different from how some other states have done it. So they were on board with a slightly lower target, but at least they came on board early. We have, in addition, we have adopted an energy efficiency requirement for our state government buildings. For all new construction, that's our state agencies, the community colleges, and the universities. We haven't gotten the schools on board yet, but we're trying to with some enticements and some incentives, and we don't know that we are going to have the funds there for a while. We do, I think, have some stimulus funds that are available, and we hope to go there too. We have passed legislation, as many other states have done. We sort of have the regulatory end and the financing end. On the regulatory end, we've also protected solar panel users from homeowners association restrictions and those sort of neighborhood preservation restrictions, and that's been important for the solar industry in North Carolina. We have reorganized our state energy office and our energy policy council. We're actually relics of the Arab oil embargo, so we were really in a different era then, and so we now have an energy policy council, and we're joined by our chair, Tim Tobin, here today. That is more focused on green jobs than it is on sort of, I mean, it has to get us away from oil and energy security, but it's as much about the green jobs piece, and that's very important because the governor has made it a priority to create green jobs. So we have a new Assistant Secretary of Energy, and we have the new chair of the Energy Policy Council. That's been very important. And we also set up a biofuels center. We haven't been as aggressive as Tennessee. They have put a lot of money into it, but we've put in what we can. I think it was $5 million last year and $5 million this year. Like every other state, we had a giant budget deficit. Ours was $4.5 billion, which was about 20% of our budget. So we weren't in a position to do too much extra funding. On the financing end, we've done a couple of things. We have, I think, one of the more generous renewable energy tax credits in the country. We're about 35% and up to $2.5 million for commercial investments. We have expanded the definition of that so that donors to nonprofits who couldn't otherwise take advantage of the tax credit can now get that tax credit. So that's expanded the pool of available purchases to nonprofits, churches, schools, that sort of thing, and that's been good. We also adopted a modified form of the Berkeley bill in terms of creating voluntary financing districts. We couldn't quite go to the bonding authority, which is what some other states have done, but we have created these voluntary self-financing financing assessments districts, and hope to expand it to include bonding authority. But that's an important piece of the funding availability for these, as you all know, because you all are the experts. We have increased our performance contracting, where the energy efficiency upfits are paid for by the actual utilities line item in the budget. We had a cap of $100 million in North Carolina. We had hit that. We moved it up to $500 million. That's supposed to create about 13 jobs per million that we increased it. So we're looking at about 5,000 more jobs as a result of that, and that's jobs at home in North Carolina. That's great. And we have created a Green Business Fund, which is a small grant fund, not as highly funded as we'd like, for emerging green businesses, and those are small businesses, and we have a particular category. And those are, and we've actually got very, I don't know if any administration officials are left here, but we are very grateful for the $285 million in stimulus funding that we have gotten that will be going towards energy causes, whether it's weatherization or the Green Business Fund or creating a revolving loan fund for green businesses. So that I'm proud of. There are a couple things we need to do. We apparently score an F in net metering, so we need to do something to improve the landscape for those who want to install these renewable energy devices, so we can set it up with a better relationship with the IOUs on that. We are looking at feed-in tariffs. I know a lot of states are doing that. We're going to study that in the interim. We are in the process of establishing wind permitting. Right now, it's sort of hit or miss. We have no regime for wind permitting, and we have all kinds of opportunity off our coast, and we are working on that. We've got a bill that's sitting in the House, but it needs some work. And we also have legislation to green up our building code. We're running to a tremendous amount of resistance from the home builders lobby, as I guess everybody faces that in every state. But we are hopefully going to come around on that. It's just, I don't think that we have any choice when 70% of our energy goes into buildings and 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions. That's part of the sector we got to get a handle on. And I wish I could say that we were one of those 14 states with clean cars, but we sure tried. And we really tried. But now we don't. Thank God for Obama. And then we also are looking at a public benefits fund. There are various iterations of that. I think Si's got a good proposal. We had another proposal that was pending this past session, and that was just, we need to have an independent energy efficiency administrator. We don't have anything in place for that. And those are some of the things we're looking at to be doing in the short session we go back in May. So I'll turn it over to Si and Eric to talk a little bit more about the business end of it.
Thank you, Pricey. I'd like to focus just, Pricey's covered a lot of ground, which is all very important. But I'd like to focus on why the present bill is good for North Carolina, and I think good for all of our states. In North Carolina, we're a big coal burner, and we spend $17 billion a year that goes out of North Carolina on coal and petroleum products. And so as I think about this in a very simplistic fashion, and I look at the downward sloping curve, which would be carbon reduction over time that the bill puts forth, what I see is I think I could take that same curve and plot that as fossil fuels reduction over that period of time, and also dollars that flow out of North Carolina staying in North Carolina. And that's a huge amount of money that leaves North Carolina every day. And so that's my first point. My second point obviously has to do with safety and health, because in North Carolina some years back we passed clean smokestacks, and clean smokestacks was passed for one reason, and that was because the health community really got behind the issue of the toxins coming out of our coal smokestacks. Well, a lot of those toxins, as you know, are still there, and the health bill to North Carolinians because of coal is huge. And if we can get to the point where we begin to price the externalities that we do not price today, coal and energy efficiency, compared to energy efficiency, compared to many other low carbon forms of electricity, is not as attractive as it would appear at first blush. So that's sort of a macroeconomic view. I'd like to step down now and look at what I think are the three things that North Carolina has going for it. And the first is energy efficiency, which every one of our states has going. But a study by the Southern Policy Growth Board, which is all of the southern states, figures North Carolina could save $7.8 billion in energy costs by instituting reasonable energy efficiency standards, and they could do that over the next 20 years. That's a huge savings. And if you want to read a very interesting study, the McKinsey Global Institute put out a study this year that basically shows you if you just read the executive summary, that energy efficiency dollars will return a 17% internal rate of return for every dollar spent. And I don't know of an investment today that will bring that kind of return. So, but a utility, as you know, is not going to move until policy is set that requires them to move, and policy that really requires it. Now we have our Senate Bill 3 in North Carolina, but we're already getting pushback from the utilities that they're having problems meeting it, doing this. But we need a federal standard, and obviously we need it right away. So energy efficiency is a big one, and with energy efficiency comes really tens of thousands of jobs, because energy efficiency is what I call the block and tackling. It's the weatherization, the new windows. It's putting the building trades back to work and giving a good return. The second area for North Carolina is biomass, and biomass was heavily touted in the studies done when we passed our Senate Bill 3. Biomass has got some problems surrounding it, but I personally am involved on the board of a public company that has developed and is commercially producing cellulosic ethanol. And the cellulosic approach to producing ethanol is here. It's not something in the future. But again, it's going to require legislation to push it over the hump. And North Carolina has tremendous biomass resources. And thirdly is wind. Last Friday, UNC made a public presentation of the recent wind study that was commissioned by the state. And the numbers that came out of it were really, really quite something. Offshore wind in North Carolina could produce 55,000 megawatts of power. That's 130% of our present peak load. And if we just did 20% of that, 10,000 megawatts, we would be incurring an investment of $22 billion. There'd be 45,000 construction jobs involved in building the darn thing, and 10,000 permanent jobs. And that would take care of 20% of the load of North Carolina. And that doesn't count the fact that you take, if you remember my $17 billion going out, well, 7.5 of that 17 billion is coal. And you can just cut that coal number by 20% just from the wind alone. If you add in energy efficiency, you can see what's going to happen to coal. And I think that's our future. I mean, we really have to begin to envision a future where coal is not what brings us the energy services that we enjoy. So I'm quite optimistic about the effects of this bill, and I'm going to do all I can to convince people that it needs to be passed. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I wanted to start by thanking both of you for the work you've done in North Carolina. Senate Bill 3 and the passage of that bill in 2007 has greatly changed and the industry, the renewable energy industry in particular in North Carolina. My company, Argand Energy Solutions, we started the company in the beginning of 2007, and we are a solar energy company primarily focused on engineering, system design, and installation services, and we recently formed a training division of the company as well. We want to be the leaders out there training electricians, plumbers, roofers, those folks that are currently unemployed that are looking to cross-train and get into the renewable energy industry. So we see that as a big part of our business model going forward. I wanted to, I think both of the other panelists did a nice job of talking about things from sort of the macro level. I wanted to take and give you an example through our company experience exactly what some of the great work that's been done in the last couple of years, what that has done in terms of our specific situation. We started the company with myself and co-founder in the beginning of 2007, 2 people, and we now have 15 employees, and we're based in Charlotte, North Carolina. We do business both in South Carolina and North Carolina, and we get to see the dramatic differences between those 2 business climates when it comes to renewable energy. And just 15 miles down the road from us as we cross over the border into South Carolina, we're working on a project right now where the utility won't even let us hook up the solar panels into their system. And whereas we get into Charlotte and other parts of the market, we're being encouraged to do that now. So it's a big difference. Policy is driving the market in such a huge way. A couple of the other facts that I wanted to go over. Pricey talked a little bit about the 10,500 jobs that have been created since SB 3 went through. On top of that, we now have all 100 counties in North Carolina have employees working, people working in the renewable energy industry. It's created $3.5 billion in economic investment in the state, which is helping to offset some of that drain that's going out every year. In an economy where we've seen job growth decline by 6%, the renewable energy industry has seen job growth of about 5% in the last 12 months. So it really is having a big impact where we are. My background, I grew up in a solar energy family, I like to say. I grew up, my dad had a solar energy business in Virginia back in the late 70s and early 80s. And the technology worked back then. It works even better today. The problem was back then, the tax credits were dismantled in 1985, and the industry went from 28,000 people down to 2,000. Overnight, it was decimated. For the first time in the history of this industry, we now have strong federal tax incentives 8 years, and as in our industry, that's a lifetime. So we now have a good, strong policy there. We need a national renewable portfolio standard and a strong one. And I think 20% is a minimum. Something greater than that would be even better. Just in my own calculations, if we had a strong renewable portfolio standard, I think we could grow the company that I own to 100 employees over the next couple of years. I don't think that would be a far stretch at all. We have competitors in the state that are already halfway there, and I think that that's really our goal. The other interesting thing, or I think the beauty of companies in the solar energy space and system integration side is we employ people across the job sector. We have engineers with our company, we have salespeople, we have installers and electricians. It's a wide range of people. We're seeing a lot of people coming out of other sectors of the economy now that can be retrained, and I think that seeing a strong national policy is really going to piggyback on top of what we have at the state level to really create significantly more jobs throughout the state. I like to say that everywhere you drive around in the state of North Carolina and around the country where there's open, unshaded, sunny rooftop space could be somebody up there working, installing solar panels. So think about that as an image. Every time you drive by a big open warehouse or something where there's 100, 200, 300,000 square feet of open space up there, people could be put to work right now installing solar panels if we had the right incentives and the right policies at the federal level. The last couple things I want to mention, the inconsistency from state to state is a killer. We can't build a national company, a truly national business model right now, because when we can't even build a regional model that has any kind of inconsistencies in it. South Carolina is different from Tennessee, is different from Virginia to North Carolina. Every state is different. The interconnection, some utilities will let you connect, others won't. Some will pay you for the power and let you spin your meter backwards. Other states won't. A strong national policy and some of the things that I hope that they address in this the new bill. Maybe when it gets to the floor, they can add some changes to it that address interconnection, because I understand right now there really aren't any provisions for interconnection in the bill, and making that consistent. And then last, I just want to sort of say again that solar energy specifically works very, very well in the Southeast. It works everywhere that the sun shines. You tell me a place where the sun's not shining, and I'll tell you solar energy probably isn't real effective there. But we continue to hear the argument, primarily from folks at the utility level, that solar energy is not an effective source of power generation, especially in the Southeast. The anecdotal evidence that we have, and just from customers telling us, and a lot of it's actually data now that we've got from monitoring systems, we're seeing customers that are getting anywhere from 10 to 20% more than what we had predicted from calculators from sources like the National Renewable Energy Lab. So it works in its purest form when it's distributed on rooftops of homes and businesses. And again, I just would go back to the job creation aspect of this. And everywhere there's an open rooftop, there's an opportunity for a job to be created and secured for the long-term energy security and job security of the country. So, thank you.
So I guess we'll turn it over.
If there are any questions now before, so it's just rather than doing a big Q&A thing at the end, if there's any questions you guys have this panel.
Is the HOA law retroactive?
I am afraid that it's prospective. We had a hard time even getting that much from the homeowners association, as you can imagine. But and we're trying to expand it beyond solar panels too. But if you're aware of any people who've had success with the retroactive application, I'd love to learn about that. But it's a really tough battle, that one.
Same in Virginia.
Yeah.
Representative, you were talking about the Berkeley model that you're applying in North Carolina, and I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on the bond issue and how you're hoping to help that.
Well, we have a local government commission that oversees those sorts of legislative initiatives, and I'm not all that familiar with it. I was one of the sponsors of the bill, but from what I understand, they had some objection to the bonding piece of it. I think that I know that the banking industry wants that debt to be subordinated, and I know that was an issue for us, and I think we did do that. But just in terms of authorizing bonding for these renewable energy districts was something that they weren't ready to embrace in July, but I think they might be ready in May. So what we did was we created the opportunity to create these voluntary districts so that you could have the assessments placed, and then we hope to, and those would be available for grant money, which is primarily the stimulus funding. And I think the cities of Raleigh and Asheville have already adopted procedures to put those in place. But does that clarify it a bit for you?
What would you hope to happen if they did adopt the bond measure?
Well, so that the municipalities could actually issue bonds that will pay for these renewable energy devices, because they are too expensive generally for the average homeowner to implement. And that's the purpose of those bills, I think. And that was the model we were using. I think it's been successful in Boulder and Berkeley and other places.
In that case, do they make, doesn't the municipality make a loan to the homeowner, and then the homeowner has sort of a first lien on the deed, and that's the mechanism?
I think that's how they work. We just hadn't gotten there yet because we just couldn't clear the hurdle of the objection of the local commission.
Yeah, in the Berkeley model, it's actually allows the homeowner to basically take advantage of the very low interest rates that a municipality can and amortize it over a 20 or 25 year period, which is one of the biggest hurdles we face in the solar energy industry is that upfront cost. So it's an increase in the property tax of that home, and the other thing it also addresses is that when a business puts solar energy on, they may have a 30 or 40 year commitment to that facility. A homeowner may be living there for 5 or 10 years, and they may not want to make the upfront commitment, so it would transfer along with the tax base on it.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to invite the next panel, which is our folks from North Dakota, and also Gary Guzzi, who is the new Deputy Director of the White House Council on Environmental Quality. And as an acknowledgement of what Margie had talked about, that was then, this is now. This is an office which is, and a position which has been open for, I think, as long as it's been created. So you have an unfilled position in government for many, many, many years and decades, and really it's taken the Obama administration to care enough and be committed enough to this agenda to fill that role. And so Gary is that person, and nobody is better suited to talk about the kind of impact on rural communities of clean energy, because the role of the White House Council is really that interagency work. So whether it's the Department of Energy or the Department of Agriculture, it's about bringing the full power of and coordination of the federal government to bear. And so that's now your job. So Gary.
Great, thank you. President Hubbard, Executive Director Alton, thank you and your colleagues for being here today. I bring you greetings from CEQ Chair Sutley, who is off to California to participate in a climate summit with Governor Schwarzenegger and other public officials, and then we'll be off to meet with mayors in Seattle. But it's a pleasure to have you here in Washington. I know it's been an exciting day for you, and I believe an historic day. Let's all hope that it's a historic day. And to see the kind of both insight and action that is taking place now in understanding that the energy challenges our country faces, the climate challenges that we face, really are about the security of this country, our economic well-being, and from coast to coast, in large cities, in small towns, in urban areas, in rural areas, there is an enormous opportunity that we collectively have to transform our economy and to rebuild our country with an emphasis on clean technology and good American jobs. I was privileged about 20 years ago to bicycle across the state of Iowa 20 summers ago, and then to do it again this summer with my 14-year-old son. And we were in July, and it was breathtaking to see the transformation, really the beginning of the transformation of the landscape there, the actual landscape, where, you know, that wind, which used to be that sort of cursed thing, particularly when you're on a bicycle and if it's not at your back, really was beginning to be seen as this incredible asset that we all collectively share. And to see the landscape transformed by wind farms now that are providing productive and important contribution to this country's energy solution was really breathtaking. And in many ways, I think that that's emblematic of what we recognize in this administration and are committed to, and that is that we need an economic transformation. We need America to be the leader in achieving the innovation and transforming our economy in this fashion. And so I think you've seen from the start with the Recovery Act, a historic investment of some $80 billion in clean energy, and that's represented in a transformation of the energy grid to a smart grid, in doubling the renewable generation capacity in the country, in all sorts of smart investments, like investing in the R&D that will produce new generations of battery technology, and you know, the research centers all over the country where this is beginning to happen and have some effect. The transformation of old steel manufacturing plants to ones that are in fact producing the parts for those windmills in all sorts of towns and cities across the country. The effort to really recognize the potential of energy efficiency and to begin to deploy the assets for people to weatherize their homes and make smart investments that are sort of the low-hanging fruit of energy efficiency and job creation. The training that's critical for green jobs for people all over the country. So these are, I think, the kinds of efforts that we've taken a first step on, and that first step is with the recovery. But there is the recognition that there's much more to do, and that we have an opportunity by setting the right playing field, by setting the right set of rules, the right direction to go even further. And that's why the administration worked so hard to partner with the automobile industry and come up with a common sense set of miles per gallon efficiency standards that are at once aspirational and drive the technology, yet are achievable and won't impose excessive costs on the American people. Why those kinds of partnerships are so critical, and why we regard public sector and private sector partnerships as a lot of the way to get this done, so that America can be exporting the clean cars, the clean technology all over the world, and we won't be in the position of seeing our jobs go overseas. The action by the House of Representatives in June was a critical next step at promoting clean energy, and one that obviously will help to make renewable energy profitable and prolific, that will decrease our dependence on foreign oil, that will protect our planet and future generations from the increasingly detrimental effects of climate change. And as we work to really jumpstart investments in renewable energy and find all sorts of opportunities for creating good green jobs, reducing our dependence on foreign oil, we'll be looking to work with the Senate to perfect and move this very important energy security and climate legislation that you all had the chance to see firsthand. So I want to thank you for the work that you do, for enhancing the public awareness and understanding of the significance of these issues to our country, to our economy, to say that we're here to partner with you in that work. We at the Council on Environmental Quality have a role of coordinating federal environmental policy, and we work with all of the federal agencies. We work extensively with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, with the U.S. Department of Interior, with the Environmental Protection Agency, and with HUD, with the Department of Labor, all who I know have important roles in your communities. And as we go about our work, I think we're very conscious of the way in which what we do here can have profound effects in helping to foster a sound economy and foster good, solid jobs all across the country, so that your work and your leadership in bringing these issues to public attention and enhancing that insight and ultimately action that we're committed to here as well is an absolutely critical part of our efforts. So thank you for that, and I'm happy to really answer any questions that you may have, and look forward to the discussion of the next panel also. Yes.
Have you figured out the date for your announcement for the energy efficiency and conservation block grants that are available for competitive grants?
I don't know if we have, actually. Candidly, I'm as was said at the start, I'm relatively new to this position, and I'm excited about it. I come from, and I'll give you 1 second on my background. I come from the private sector, where I was involved in the oversight and tracking of, among other things, renewable energy credits, where we had seen those grow to roughly 2 billion renewable energy credits all around the country, starting in 1 or 2 states, and now many, many states who have chosen to put in place either compulsory or voluntary renewable energy standards. And one of the things that's so exciting is, unlike at any other time in I think our history, the number of activities, the sweep, the breadth of the activities, and the fact that there's a unifying sense of purpose around them, around the ways in which the things that the federal government does either can affect or can encourage local activities, can encourage and spur and spark important innovation, is just pervasive throughout the government. So it's an enormously exciting time. And what it means is that I'm still learning about a lot of those activities, so I apologize for that. I'm sure we can get you the information or sense of when we get that that little piece of it done. But the sheer breadth of the activities that are going on, I think, recognizes that is really a testament to that recognition of how significant the opportunity is for all of us to really transform and rebuild our economy.
We have two folks from North Dakota come up. They're here. Jack and Mike. Are they off meeting with?
Yeah, no, they're here.
Yeah, join in.
Great, thank you. Hi there. Yeah, thanks for the question. Bye.
Well, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to come back to Washington. Senators Dorgan and Conrad hold key positions, and Conrad's the chair of the Budget Committee, and Dorgan is chair of the Energy and Water Committee. And they're both leaders in renewable energy. When things weren't so easy back in 2005, they helped get the 2005 energy bill passed that had clean renewable energy bonds. The city of Fargo is one of the only city in North Dakota that applied for and won one of those low interest loans. And what that did is the way the production tax credit's set up, it's kind of geared towards those higher end projects, so 100 megawatts or more. And that kind of gets the residents out of the loop. So that was a way to kind of even the playing field. Part of what we can do in the local areas is show them the money. So we, on that $1 million investment, have been capturing methane. We have solar and wind there, and then we have a little meter that shows up on the internet. So every 15 minutes you can see how much it produces for electricity and for money. So now our legislators that maybe think that this stuff's too expensive, we can show them that we got $1 million return on $1 million investment in a year. But that included carbon credits. We're one of only 7 cities in the United States that joined the Chicago Climate Exchange. And we had been selling some methane for years, and we meter it. So we had a record that was demonstrable. And so we were able to prove it again with selling historic credits for $600,000 that went to the general fund. So that helps taxpayers by showing them the money. And that's part of what I think the urgency for this energy efficiency bill that Congress and the administration is pushing. The sooner that money gets out, the sooner we can start saving the taxpayers money. And there's we're bound by taking the money to prove or to show the returns that you're getting. And one of the things that's exciting is in Fargo, how many people know that Fargo is the home for the second largest Microsoft compound in the United States? 2 people from North Dakota. So other than Redmond, we're the second largest for Microsoft. Anyway, just today, Microsoft announced a joint effort. We're going to be a pilot project for their new software program called HOM, H-O-H-M. They're working with our utilities, the city of Fargo, and they have software that they've developed that will put on a spreadsheet each individual's consumption. So it's a way to help us track the efficiency as we implement these energy saving strategies. So Boulder did the smart meters pilot. That was Xcel Energy. They're one of our utilities, so they're working with Xcel Energy, City of Fargo, Cass County Electric, and Microsoft for a pilot project to help spread the good news about energy efficiency in a very demonstrable way, and it won't take very long because we can show them the money. So there's lots of good reasons to care about the environment, you know, but one common denominator is the pocketbook, and we can show them that there's no better return on investment than energy efficiency. So we all have a role to play, and we can learn from each other at groups like this. And like I said, our senators have been leaders when it wasn't easy, and I'm confident that they're going to help make these bills as good as they can be for energy efficiency. And they're big Obama supporters early on, and I think that we can, if we can give them more support back home, and demonstrate that we're the true conservatives. Conservation is conservative. You do more with less. You don't waste. You take the resources you have, make better use out of them. And there's no better way to get a return on investment than energy efficiency, 25% on a small upfront investment that's annualized. Jack's one of our guys here in North Dakota that has, as we develop the transmission grid, see, we've got a lot. We're rated #1 for wind in the country by far, but we're only about 11th for implementation because we don't have the transmission. But in the meantime, as we're developing that grid, there is opportunities for the distributed model, and Jack's all about that.
Yeah, I'm Jack Hansen, an old solar wind contractor, probably the same era of your dad, back in the 70s. Yeah, I was just reminiscing about how in the 70s, you know, business was booming. I did $1 million business in 79 through 83, and then it went to zero within 6 months because of government policy. And so anyway, over the years, you know, things have kind of muddled along until recently, just the last few months, things have, you know, pretty much boomed again, especially in the wind industry. So it is, just historically, you know, things were good at one time, and just politically, it just dropped. And it's too bad that happened, because we would really be far ahead of the curve internationally and economically if we would have stuck with things that weren't perfect in the 70s, but they could have been improved, and by now we could have been running probably 50% alternatives if we would have stayed with it. So hopefully we can encourage everybody to stick with it and not let the opposition trounce us. So in North Dakota, it is the windiest area, and I primarily promote, wind projects, small wind projects. I like to work with farmers and we probably were the first business 3 years ago to really promote and install small distributed wind. Now there's 3 or 4 more other companies. So when the incentives are right and the utilities are starting to get friendly, it's just if there was a national standard for utilities, because I spend half my time just with the utilities trying to make sure they're not threatened by what we're doing. They're so scared to death they're going to go bankrupt because we're going to have some alternative energy fed into their system. So there's lots of things to do, but I'm encouraged. I've been through it all, ups and downs over the last 35 years, which is discouraging at times, but I've really been encouraged the last 6 months. And I thank you for all your effort. What the other states are doing probably will have some impact on North Dakota eventually. I've been told by people there that it's the last state that'll pick up all this, but we're hoping it won't be too many years.
We're not necessarily early adopters, but we watch and see what works, and then we apply it in very innovative ways. So be careful. We're one of the only states that has a $1.5 billion surplus,
That's right.
and we're still building buildings. So there's a reason that we aren't necessarily on the cutting edge of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that to some extent the common theme that both of your experiences raise is that it's critical for government policies to be mindful of the impacts that they can have and to provide a measure of consistency and predictability in the kind of incentives that they create, while at the same time sort of doing that in a way that isn't prescriptive, that spurs the local innovation that allows makes Fargo a great place for a Microsoft to be testing out. It's a new product like the home product, or any one of hundreds of other inventors across the country who are thinking about what are the tools that will help to achieve real energy efficiency, help to save homeowners, consumers money in their day-to-day lives and their utility bills, while at the same time having the effect of reducing greenhouse gases and having other beneficial environmental effects. And that's the exciting thing about where we are, the chance to really help to foster that kind of innovation.
And I think there's an opportunity here. It's not just creating green jobs, but giving us more opportunities to invest in ourselves through these energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. It's having a city that has invested this money and been able to show a return. We've avoided, we got $2 million in new revenue just this year on conservation projects. That's the equivalent of 7 mills on property tax. So we didn't have to raise our mill levy this year. That's an instant example. But then it also, there's nothing, if we can target our incentives as I think the Obama administration and these bills do, there's opportunities. Instead of having to invest everything in Wall Street, let's invest in our own resources with our own money and get our own returns. And that's a real opportunity. So it's not just waiting around for somebody else to do it. That's our opportunity.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you rush off, are there any questions for you guys? Okay, we have one more panel, and David, if you want to come on up. David Ives is with the Economic Development Administration, which is part of the Commerce Department. So if the folks from Ohio want to come up who are part of this next panel, don't be shy. And I'll turn it over to David.
Okay, thank you very much. For those of you that may not be familiar with the Economic Development Administration, we are the economic development arm of the U.S. Department of Commerce. And as such, we provide grant-based, what we call investments, to units of state and local government and nonprofits in communities and regions that are suffering from economic distress. And we do this to help foster an environment in which jobs are created and private capital investment is generated. And our investments, which range from strategic planning grants to more traditional bricks and mortar infrastructure investments, are really focused on promoting three key things: entrepreneurship, regional competitiveness, and innovation. And we at EDA really believe that a green, clean energy economy is key to fostering these concepts of competitiveness and innovation. And as such, we have over the past 2 years implemented the Global Climate Change Mitigation Incentive Fund, which is quite a mouthful, but we can thank our friends in Congress for that. The fund is focused on supporting green versions of our existing investments, our traditional types of investments. And its primary focus is, again, job creation and economic development, but the focus here is on renewable energy, energy efficiency, green building, and reuse and restoration projects. And during the past 2 years that EDA has implemented the Global Climate Change Fund, the $24 million that we have invested in the over 30 projects has, the recipients estimate that that's going to result in over $1 billion in private investment and create over 9,000 new jobs. And many of these investments are LEED certified business incubators, technology centers, workforce training facilities, really things that are helping to promote the development of small businesses, which we also see as crucial and key to the green economy and future economic growth. So that's all I have to say, and with that I'll turn it over to the distinguished gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you. Well, these guys are the distinguished ones. I just happen to be a state representative, and I've really found that out today as we've visited our congressional delegation and the two senators' offices, that this is really where the message is, the small business folks who are trying to take advantage of what we're doing. And I would like to thank President Obama and all the folks from the administration for really giving us this opportunity to share our story and to make the kind of commitment that has been made to this, as well as the senators that have introduced the legislation. You know, it's always a politician's expression that we're concerned about the future of the environment for our children and our children's children. Well, to me, that takes a very personal message in that I just had my first grandchild 2.5 months ago. And as I lift little Milo up and look in his eyes, I am concerned, and I want to be able to say everything's going to be okay. And it's a personal story, and while we all have these other responsibilities as public servants, that's an important part of the package. We managed in Ohio 2 years ago to pass Senate Bill 221, had the renewable standards, made a huge difference. And this is what we're finding out as we've held field hearings as part of the Alternative Energy Committee in order to talk to folks like the two gentlemen you're going to hear from about what has this meant to business in the state, what opportunities are there for that may not be happening, that we need to be looking at in terms of what the state's doing or not doing, and how can we really turn this into the kind of job creation opportunity we believe is there. The message has been overwhelming. The potential, particularly in Ohio, the potential is there. We have so many resources, whether it's manpower because of having such a manufacturing base, whether it's brain power because we have such a great base of higher education institutions, and creativity. Right in my own area, I happen to represent the Ohio State University, and between Ohio State University and Battelle, hundreds of millions of dollars will be spent on alternative energy research, and they've committed that. But then it's how do we make sure that what we create and in meeting those requirements will indeed produce real jobs, that any of the alternative energy manufacturing that's done is really done and develop products that are developed here as opposed to imported here, and that's a critical issue. And time is of the essence. That's certainly a message that we took to the delegation, that we have a window of opportunity. When we saw folks from all over the world come to Ohio and start to talk about bringing their products to Ohio because they knew we were serious about what we needed to do. That's why it's so important for this legislation nationally to get passed. We think that will have a tremendous impact on what we'll be able to do. And certainly in Ohio's experiences, we're blessed with all the opportunities in wind and solar and biomass and fuel cells. We have expertise and we have the opportunities, and we think that with some strong national policy, this is really going to help our alternatives. And we look to the success of these two businesses as a shining example of what will happen, and you'll hear from them as they tell you their stories. Jeff?
Thanks a lot. Representative Celeste is a little bit too modest. He does play a very important role within the state, and you know, this is listening to the North Carolina delegation talk about what's going on in their backyard. It's critical, and I was talking with a friend of mine about the future of renewable energy and whether or not there's going to be any big national players. And really, it's a state-by-state, really fractured market right now. And that's a plus and a minus. It's a plus in that there's a lot of local opportunities, but it's a minus in that it prevents some of the economies of scale that we can achieve if we go with regional and the larger national forces to achieve the big job we have in front of us. By way of introduction, my name's Jeff Greenfield. I had no idea that I was going to be an entrepreneur when I grew up, but by accident, being a technologist and being attracted to solar and renewables, I put solar on my house, built an off-grid, standalone house back before net metering, back before solar was cool. Eventually, my weekends got very busy with people wanting me to do systems on their houses. Hung up my shingle, quit my day job, started doing systems full-time. Classic mom and pop startup. Mom joined the company to do the books. I was out in the truck or on the phone. We moved from my attic to a business incubator in Athens, Ohio. And 9 years later, we have 24 people, engineers. We're an integrator installation company similar to Argand and many other companies throughout the nation. We're doing the jobs that can't be exported. We're the boots on the roof. If I had a shovel-ready roof, I'd use a shovel on it. And it's exciting. It's a great space to be in. We're actually getting a lot of things done. Ohio has been a surprisingly exciting market to work in. It's moved from being a sleepy area that people flew over between California and New Jersey to being an important market. We are the 5th largest energy or electricity market in the nation, and we are what people think of as the kind of the Midwest. We are the mom and apple pie world. Similar to, you guys have a good mom and apple pie rep as well over in Fargo. But if you can do solar and wind in Ohio, you can do it everywhere. And so we really think not only is this important to create jobs in Ohio, it's important to help push the debate and create the talking points that we need as a nation to really do what needs to be done for the climate and also for jobs and national security. As our company grows, we've taken advantage of all sorts of things within the state. We work in about 6 states. And there's a huge difference between Ohio and Pennsylvania, which have RPS or renewable energy standards, and the other states that don't. Critical difference. And it's really sad for those folks in Indiana and those folks in Michigan and Kentucky that want to do this stuff but don't have the extra push that SRECs and WindRECs can give us. And so having a national standard is going to be huge. This is going to create jobs like Third Son's jobs in lots and lots of other states, and it's really about local jobs that people can have, not jobs in cities. It can be really distributed jobs across the state, rural jobs as well. Let's see, the evolution of our business has surprised me. We've really grown up and become more I don't know, more business-like in our business dealings. And the good news is it's becoming more competitive. There's a lot of big players getting into the space, and that's great. We need to rise to the challenge, and we need to scale quickly, and we need to grow a lot of the efficiency at the last mile of deployment. There's a lot of gains, at least a third of the cost of renewable energy systems comes through the deployment and installation. So manufacturing can squeeze a couple ounces of efficiency out of the process, but the actual deployment, the actual installation piece, the actual design and sales piece has lots of rooms for innovation and improvement, and that's where we come in. So I think that healthcare is a very important subject. We're all, obviously focused on some of those things. I'm greatly worried that energy is going to be swept aside. The House passed acceptable legislation, and it was nice to see Kerry Boxer announce and promote their legislation today. But we're all going to need to go back to our home states and work as hard as we can to keep this stuff center stage and carry that torch that it's jobs, it's the economy, it's national security, and of course it's the environment. So thank you all for the work that you're doing in your districts and your home geographies. I'll turn it over to Greg. It's a great segue. Greg and I met accidentally in a lot of ways and found out that there's a lot of synergy, and Greg's kind of the other piece of job creation in Ohio.
Thanks, Jeff. My name's Greg DeFischer. I'm CEO of Freeman Schwabe Machinery. We've been in business since 1892, founded in downtown Cincinnati, primarily as a manufacturer of machines for the shoe industry. Well, we all know what's happened to the shoe industry. It's virtually non-existent in this country today. So back in 1978, due to more favorable economic policies, we left the state of Ohio, moved across the river into Kentucky near the airport. And for those of you that have never been to the airport, Cincinnati Airport is actually located in the state of Kentucky, and we don't have time to go into that today. But anyway, so for 30 years, we were in Kentucky. I am a Claremont County resident, Claremont County, Ohio. But I make die cutting presses and automated cutting solutions for any type of non-metal material. So things real tangible, such as those of you do-it-yourselfers, the Norton 5-inch sanding disc that you buy at Home Depot, that is die cut on my machine. The Ohio driver's license has a magnetic stripe on the back of that. That magnetic stripe is put on with my machine. Those of you that get a Blockbuster envelope or Netflix envelope at home, that is die cut on my machine. So those are some real things that, we used to have a slogan that says we shape the products of the world. But our heritage has always been in automotive. Chances are the automobile that you drive, the car seat that you sit in, whether it be leather material, fabric, or cloth, or a vinyl laminate, has been die cut on my machine. This year already, we've been in the Czech Republic, Poland, Morocco, and Turkey doing installations. But this recession, because of automotive, has severely impacted my business. I've created 25 new jobs for the state of Ohio when we moved 1 year ago. And we've also begun, as we look to diversify from shoes to automotive to carpet tiles to envelopes, we've transitioned our business trying to figure out how can we sustain this for another 100 years. And we started looking at renewable energy division. And so we've hired someone and has been spending the last 13 months on that, and we've actually put in 4 turnkey production lines for the production of crystalline silicon solar panels. None in the U.S. yet, but 2 in Taiwan, 2 in Taiwan, 2 in India. Thank you, and 1 getting ready to ship into Italy. I'm sorry, thank you, Jeff. So our whole plan was, hey, we're machine builders. We're going to take these turnkey production solutions and sell those and help you find a material site, find a location, help you source materials, and get you started so that you can produce your own panels. Well, then we started thinking, as we start running the numbers, saying, wait a minute here, this is kind of like Gillette, where they'll give you the razor and they sell you the blades. Or Cincinnati Bell will give you the phone, they want the minutes. We're saying, hey, we'll sell you the turnkey production line, but we're going to go into the production of crystalline silicon panels. So out of our traditional mode, But we've done a lot of research. That's how we came across Jeff's company, and we thought there were a lot of synergies. So our business model is to use Ohio-based suppliers with Ohioans, maybe some Northern Kentuckians, producing crystalline, yeah, sorry, and producing panels and using Ohio integrators. We're not going to be able to compete with the Sharps and the BP. That's not our business model, but it's, again, focusing on the state of Ohio. And someone that's been in the state of Kentucky for 30 years and now has made the transition to the state of Ohio, the state of Ohio is very pro-business. And I would not be in the state, I would not have relocated my business into the state of Ohio had it not been for the type of incentives, the business advice, and the assistance that I was provided. And now I'm working closely with the Department of Development. Again, we believe that within 3 years we'll create another 100 jobs, new jobs that are technical. So we're manufacturing, renewable energy, high tech. And so I'm focused on the job creation piece as well. And so we're making good progress, I think, as a country, but there's a lot more opportunity for us to move forward. And I think faster, you know, at my die cutting presses, I'm faced with Chinese imports. It's a reality. And I'm very concerned that we don't act quick enough so that I can get this production facility off the ground. I'm very concerned about it, and that we stress that sense of urgency. And it's going to be good for everybody. So thanks again for the opportunity to meet with everybody here today.
Anybody have any questions? We did an awesome job.
Oh, we got one back here. One back here.
Go ahead.
I had to apologize for getting a phone call from a wind developer who's just commissioned 210 megawatts in northern Montana.
Yeah, right.
Tough. That's a good news to share. Any other good news to share or any questions? Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. It really is on the state legislators, other local electeds, to the small businesses and other businesses that are here. It really is. It's the front lines of clean energy, of job creation, and thank you all for coming to Washington to help make sure that Congress becomes the new front line and really delivers for all the work that you're doing. I'm going to introduce Amy Saltzman now, who is the Director of Policy Outreach, I believe, for the Council on Environmental Quality. Amy is everywhere. She does all things. She's engaged in all issues, but is really one of the most engaged leaders here in the White House on energy and climate. And it's a pleasure to work with her. And thanks for taking us home.
Thank you, Ivan. I wish I could be all places at the same time and multiply myself like an amoeba. It would make my job a lot easier, but I'm sure you all feel the same pressures. I just want to thank you for the incredible leadership. And I'm gonna stand over here. This podium's just not the right size. Yeah, how about that? I want to thank you for your leadership. We wouldn't be poised right now to have the first comprehensive energy and climate legislation ever if it hadn't been for the hard work that you all have done at the state level and the work that Environment America has done in the states to help you do that. I think that the panel that you just heard from so well speaks to the issues and the opportunities that really cry out for a national approach that this administration so strongly supports. You know, there's the renewable energy developers who are just dying to get into the business. And then there are the traditional manufacturers who need to innovate and need a stable economic environment to do that with. And you all have done it at the state level. You've got your renewable energy standards. Some of you have climate action plans. They're all fabulous, but without a national program, it's not going to work. So I want to thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for all that you will do. And I'll do my best to answer any questions that you've got. Excellent. What a program. You all are probably ready to go out and do your work. Thank you. Good.